بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان. والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان. والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ رب المشرقين ورب المغربين. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يسأله من في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان. فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان؟ يرسل عليكما شواظ من نار ونحاس فلا تنتصران. فبأي آلاء ربكما ربكما تكذبان فإذا انشقت السماء فكانت وردة كالدهان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه إنس ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيؤخذ بالنواصي والأقدام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون يطوفون بينها وبين حميم آن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ذواتا أفنان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان تجريان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجنتين دان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن قاصرات الطرف لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كأنهن الياقوت والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ومن دونهما جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مدهامتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان نضاختان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما فاكهة ونخل ورمان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهن خيرات حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان حور مقصورات في الخيام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان لم يطمثهن إنس قبلهم ولا جان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على رفرف خضر وعبقري حسان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان تبارك اسم ربك ذي الجلال والإكرام
يا رحيم أنت الرب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير وهذا الشهر أزمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور وهو الشهر الذي فرضت صيامه عليه وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلت خيرا من ألف شهر فيا ذا المن ولا يمن علي من علي بفكاك ركبتي من النار فيما تمن علي وادخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترست على عبادك فيه الصيام صل على محمد وآل محمد وارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في يومي هذا وفي كل يوم واغفر لي تلك الذنوب العظام فإنه لا يغفرها غيرك يا رحمن يا الآم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للثواب منك ويكنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنكمة وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي واجب يا رحيم دعوتي واكل يا غفور أثرتي فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها وهموم قد كشفتها وأثرة قد أقلتها ورحمة قد نشرتها وهلكة بلاء قد فككتها الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامد كلها على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكي ولا منازع له في أمري. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقي ولا شبيه له في عظمتي. الحمد لله فاشف الخلق أمره وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجد الباسط بالجود الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيد كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير ما حاجة به إليه عظيما وغناك عنه قديم وهو عندي كثير وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي وصفوك عن ظلمي وسترك على كبير عملي وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطئي وأمني أتماني أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك. الذي رزقتني برحمتك وأعطتني من قدرتك وعرفتني من حجابتك فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا لا خائفا ولا وجلا مدلا عليك فيما كسبت فيه إليك. فإن أبتى عني تحت بجهلي عليك ولعل الذي أبتى عني هو خير لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا قريبا أصبر على عبد اللئيم منك علي. يا ربي إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك كأن اليتطول عليك. فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إليك والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد علي بفضل إحسانك إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالك الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على علمه بعد علمي والحمد لله على عفو بعد قدرتي والحمد لله على طول أناتي في غضبي وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالك الإصباح ذو الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام الذي بعد فلا يرام وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادل ولا شبيه يشاكل ولا ظهير يوازد قهر بعزته العزة وتواصى لعظمة العظمى فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة واناسي ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنية قد أتاني وعزيمة مخوفة قد كفاني وبهجة مونكة قد أراني. فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك إجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد السائل ولا يخيب عامله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الحاربين نكال الظالمين سريك المستشركين موزي حاجات الطالبين مؤتمة المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشية ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وأمارها وتوج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وامينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتهننت وسلمت على عهد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم صل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبي العظيم. وصل على صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. وصل على أئمة المسلمين وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمام الهدى الحسن والحسين سيد الشباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الحادي المهدي. حججك على عبادك ومنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم صل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل هدايا إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك استخلف في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبلي. مكن له دينه الذي ارتزيت له، أبدله من بعد خوفي أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وعزز به وانصره وانتصر به وانصره نصرا عزيزا وافتح له فتحا يسيرا واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا وما كسرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المن به شحثنا واشأت به صدأنا وارتك به فتكنا وكسر به كلتنا وعزز به ذلتنا واغن به عائلنا واجز به عن مغرمنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به كلتنا ويسر به يسرنا وبيز به وجوهنا وفك به أسرنا وانجح به تلبتنا وانجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا وآتنا به سولنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا وآتنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المؤتين. اشف به صدورنا واذهب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إلى الحق آمين اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وكلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتزاهر الزمان علينا فصل على محمد وآله وإنا على ذلك بفتح منك تؤجل وبزر تكشف ونصر تعز وسلطان حق تظهر ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فادخلنا وفي إليين فارفعنا وبكاسم معين من عين سلسبيل فاسكنا ومن الهور الإين برحمتك فسوجنا ومن ولدان المكلمين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فاقدمنا ومن ثمار الجنة والهوم الطير فاتئمنا ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فالبسنا وليلة القدر وحج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا وسالي الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا ومن الزكوم والزري فلا تدئمنا ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل الكتران فلا تلبسنا ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عن سيئاتهم وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية وتوسع في رزقي وتجعلني من تنتصر بي لدينك ولا تستبدل به غير أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينكزيني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلة هذه ولك كبلي تبية أو ذنب تعذبني عليه اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إلهي وقف السائلون ببابك ولاذ الفقراء بجنابك ووقفت سفينة المساكين على ساحل بحر جودك وكرمك يرجون الجواز إلى ساحة رحمتك إلهي إن كنت لا تغفر في هذا الشهر الشريف إلا لمن أخلص لك في صيامه وقيامه فمن للمذنب المقصرين إذا غرق في بحر ذنوبي وآثامي إلهي إن كنت لا ترحم إلا المطيعين فمن للآسين وإن كنت لا تقبل من العاملين فمن للمذنب المقصرين إلهي ربح السائبون وفاز القائمون ونجا المخلصون ونحن عبيدك المذنبون فارحمنا برحمتك واتقنا من النار بعفوك يا كريم يا أرحم الراحمين وصل على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور اللهم أغني كل فقير اللهم اشف كل جائع اللهم اجز كل عريان اللهم اجز دين كل مدين اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب اللهم رد كل غريب اللهم فك كل عسير اللهم اصلح كل فاسد من امور المسلمين اللهم اشف كل مريض اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك اللهم اجز عنا الدين واغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير سورة الفاتحة
Sayyid Shabbir Kirmani, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Fatiha is requested for the Salih Sawab or Marhumin listed on the screen and for all Marhumin. Al-Fatiha. Aman Yujibu is requested for the names listed on the screen and for all those in need here and elsewhere. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه يكشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه يكشف السوء. We will have a daily Quran tafsir sessions with Sayyid Shabbir Kirmani at 7:30 p.m. with elaborations of certain verses within the juz of the day. He will provide a window into the apparent and hidden meanings of the miracle of a text, one which is clear and understandable for people of all backgrounds. He will also provide an introduction to each chapter under discussion and focus on the context of revelation, the historical background, as well as the spiritual, theological, and ethical interpretations of the holy text. We look forward to seeing you here. The Ladies Committee will be conducting Quran Darsa every day at 7:15 p.m. at the Masjid. All ladies are welcome to join. Masjid Hayy Youth are hosting a fun car rally scavenger hunt around the Sanford Lake Mary area. With amazing prizes up for grabs, it's a race against the clock to find items, locations, and complete challenges with the help of your family. The event will take place on Sunday, April 18th at 4 p.m., beginning at Masjid Hayy. Now with a simplified registration form, you can sign up using the link shown on the screen, or you can find it on our weekly newsletter and WhatsApp broadcast. Join in the excitement with your whole family. Interfaith Iftar. Please join us for our annual Interfaith Iftar being held on Monday, April 19th at 6:30 p.m. Our guest speaker will be Dr. Joel Hunter, who was the former senior pastor of Northland Church in Longwood. Feel free to extend this invite to your colleagues, neighbors, and friends. Registration is required due to limited seatings. Visit the link on the screen for more information and view the registration page. Sponsorship and donations. We would like to take the opportunity to thank all our sponsors for their support for the holy month of Ramadan. Our budget for the entire month is $109,150, and we have achieved $39,400 so far. There are many opportunities to support your masjid, including sponsorship for niyaz, tabarruk, hadiyah for the speakers, and as well as the general Shahr Ramadan fund. We suggest a donation of $200 per family for the Shahr Ramadan fund. However, any amount is welcome. Please contact Brother Murtaza Kareem or Sister Batul Muki at the number on the screen, or go to our website's payment center to make a donation or to sponsor. We will also have a donation table set up outside if you would like to make a donation in person. Thank you and Jazakallah. At this time, I would like to invite Sayyid Shabbir Kirmani to come recite tonight's majlis with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allah. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير. والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل. وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: where am I going in life? Keep that question in the back of your mind, inshallah we'll return to it. We have been discussing the Surah Yaseen, the heart of the Quran. Within the Quran, we have been discussing the constitution of the Quran. We have been discussing that chapter of the Quran that Allah and His representatives have deemed the heart of the Quran. And in this we've come to a realization that this is a book of guidance, a book of life, and not just a book which we unfortunately have relegated it to, that is a book of death, unfortunately. When someone is about to die, we pull out this book, we start reciting Yaseen, for example. If we want to give Isal Sawab, we want to give someone Sawab after they've departed from here, we try to recite this. And although all of these things are very good and they have their place and they have their benefit, there's no doubt. But ultimately, this is a book of guidance. This is a book of life. This is a book to thrive. And therefore, I want to question some of our assumptions of our life. You see, we have beautiful aspects of the modern world. At the same time, we have some challenges with the modern world. For example, the research is very clear. I'm someone who comes from a data background. Many of you know this already. I don't need to remind you. Now, when we study modern societies, one thing that you find that's crystal clear is that as modernity increases, as economic prosperity increases, as life seems to get better by every metric that you can study, and this doesn't matter in the East or the West. This is just as true in Western Europe as it is true in Korea or Japan or any part of the world. Wherever modernity happens, wherever you have progress, the result is that something beautiful happens to the environment around you, or maybe the environment gets destroyed. Environmentalism is a huge issue that we need to be part of as Muslims. But something very nice happens in terms of medicines. Science and progress happens. We get vaccines and things develop and things become beautiful on one level. We're living longer. If you look at the data, there's a lot of progress. But something terrible happens to our minds. All the research is categorical and clear that as progression happens economically and development happens, whether it's in Korea or Western Europe or otherwise, people get extremely sad. People get very depressed. Depression rises with progress. Why is that? I thought we have everything that we need. I thought we have everything that we want. We have the nicest houses, we have the nicest cars, we have the nicest palaces. But we're not happy. Why? It means like it's as if you spend your whole life in a rat race, running after something, thinking that this is the goal in life. You get there and you realize, that's not what I was looking for. And yet all of us do this. I want to give you an example. Alexis de Tocqueville. In the 18th century, he was a Frenchman who came to the United States. Napoleon is ruling over France. When he comes to the United States, he's analyzing the American society at that time to try to understand America and compare it to France, where he had come from. And his results were very interesting. He said America is a very strange place. Not to say France was any better necessarily, if an American went there. Nonetheless, he said America is a very strange place. He said, what did you see? He said, I noticed that everything's worth is measured by a dollar amount. So what do you mean? He said, I noticed, for example, books. The value of a book in America, de Tocqueville saying this 200 years ago, the value of a book in America is judged by how many copies it sells. For us, we're like, that makes sense. He said, that's the most outrageous thing I've ever heard in my life. You see, for example, there are many extremely valuable books that are existing in our world that the general public doesn't read. I'll give you an example. Bill Gates, consistently ranked one of the wealthiest people in the world. He has dedicated his life to read books on energy, and some of these voluminous books on energy. In fact, there's one author who's written several volumes on energy and energy consumption, because we may not be aware of it, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we're going to have a huge energy problem, because we're having a huge water problems, and hydroelectricity becomes a big problem. But many of the general public don't care. We're using aerosols, we're using things to damage the environment. You tell me, I've been working in Bismillah, in the areas of development in India and Africa and other places. Do you know how much they've had to suffer because of our development in the modern world? We've eradicated the entire atmosphere. Do you think Islam does not have a view on environmentalism? Islam has a tremendous view on environmentalism. So I was saying Bill Gates. Bill Gates has read his volumes of book of this author on energy consumption, and he says, the author himself says, I think Bill Gates is the only person on the planet who's read all of my books cover to cover. Similarly, you'll find Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, all of these people read books that the general public doesn't read. De Tocqueville, 200 years ago, he says Americans they're judging everything based on how much it sells, how many copies it sells. I saw another thing in America, Alexis de Tocqueville says. He says, I have noticed that everyone is money hungry. That's all that matters. There's no value of art, there's no value of culture, there's no value of anything else. That's what he said, not my words. And when you realize this, you realize many of the challenges that we face in the modern world are actually challenges of sociology and social sciences. And many times we mask them in religion and other dynamics. What I'm getting at here is, what is our compass in life? What is our guiding constitution in life? What is our purpose in life? I remember I was watching a documentary. You'll understand where I'm going with this in a moment very clearly. It was a documentary. It was about people who had migrated from Pakistan to the Western Europe, in particular Scandinavian countries, Norway in particular. And many of them, when they moved, they were people who were, for example, laborers. They were not the wealthiest of society. But when they came to Norway and the Scandinavian countries and Denmark and the likes, they built some wealth because they were able to establish themselves. They had fair metrics. And these are very good things that we have in the West that are beautiful and we need to appreciate. Remember, life is not black and white all the time. There's a lot of gray area. So the same way that when you take your cholesterol medicine, it solves one problem, it may also create side effects that cause other problems. That's exactly how life works. You may solve one problem, but some other problems emerge. So allow me to explain. In this documentary, these people had spent their lives in the West, and they built up 20, 30, 40 years worth of income, and then they would go back and build houses in rural villages in their homeland. And what was interesting in the documentary, they asked the real estate agents, said, what happens here? What's going on here? You're the middlemen who are making these transactions happen. They're transferring thousands and hundreds of thousands of euros from Europe to your remote village, and the prices are skyrocketing. What happens? He said candidly, he said, you want to know the truth? He said, these fathers spend their entire lives saving up to buy a house back home, or even in some cases in Europe. Then they cut to the fathers and they say, what's your goal? What's your hope? What's your aim? I just want all of us to live under one roof. That's my goal. That's what I hope. That all of us are happy as a family under one roof. Then he cut back to the real estate agent. He said, what happens after they build this house? He said, you want to know the truth? After the house is built, after the thousands of dollars are spent and the thousands of euros are spent and the thousands of pounds are spent, hundreds of thousands, the fathers pass away, and the kids never come to see the house. They sell it from abroad. They take the money, and that father's dream evaporates before his eyes, before the real estate agent's eyes. The father doesn't even see it. The question I'm asking here, and it's a tough question that requires you to confront one of your biggest fears. So, the original question I asked, why are we here? What am I doing here? And if you want guidance on this, that is why we develop a relationship with the Quran. That's why I'm having this conversation with you. That's why I'm discussing this with you. Don't spend a life of 20, 30, 40 years just accumulating, unless it's connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Ahlul Bayt. Otherwise, you'll have the same regret that hospice nurses in their research have found and data collected there. What's the biggest regret that people have on their deathbed in America? I wish I spent more time with my family. Biggest regret. We don't have time for anyone. We don't have time for our families. We don't have time for our friends. We don't have time for anyone. Do you know loneliness has become such an epidemic in America? Over 50 years, the rate of loneliness in America has doubled. You know, after 30, it's very difficult in America to make friends. You can't make friends. What's going on? We seem to have everything material, but at the same time, it's like we have nothing at all. The Quran al-Majid wal-Furqan al-Hamid is a book from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is trying to solve this problem for you and I. That do good, earn, increase your income, no problem, but use that to benefit society. Use that to make better lives for others. Use that to make the world around you a better place. You see, these riots that are happening and are about to rise further in our world, you see, for example, the issues that are going on in Paris and the banning of the hijabs. You see innocent people getting killed left, right, and center in our society, in America. As a Muslim, I should have some view on this to try to make the world a more equitable and fair place. It's not sufficient for me to just come to a society and sit there and say that I'm going to make my money and earn my paycheck, and I'm not going to speak out or I'm not going to do anything. Because that would be against the ethos of Islam. As Muslims and as people who are followers of Ahlul Bayt, we should be at the forefront of trying to make our society a better place. And this doesn't always mean speaking out. There's also a concept of voting with your wallet. Many of you are consuming, and you will go to the grocery store, you go to this place, you go to that place. Vote with your wallet. Tell me, honestly, do you know the power of the Muslim community in aggregate? The Muslim community on aggregate, globally, as one world, as one community, there's been studies in 2014, 2019, year after year. $900 billion is spent by the Muslim communities on clothes and shoes alone. That doesn't include the makeup of our sisters. Separate budget. What I'm getting at here is, do you stand by your principles of modesty, of Islam, and of ethics, or do you just take what the fashion houses give? I say this to myself first and foremost. You see, if the Louis Vuittons, if the Chanels, if the Pradas of the world, if they realize that the Muslim community will not buy their products, they will move to act in a way that conforms to the Muslim community. But if they believe that no matter what they put out, the Muslims want it just because it has a couple of initials, what do you think is going to happen? You see, these are harsh realities that we have to confront if we want stability, if we want a sanctuary, and we want happiness in life. Now, coming back to the Quran al-Majid wal Furqan al-Hamid, the Quran and the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt make one thing clear. We have not been born on this and brought to this earth to just get up in the morning, to just work, and to just get a paycheck. Although that's important and that's part of Iman, no doubt. You've heard my lectures, you know me very well from before. Islam and economics is a topic I'm very passionate about. We've been told a lie from the mimbar for a very long time, that Islam says that you're to be poor. Amir al-Mu'mineen said that if poverty was a human being, I would have slaughtered him. Why is he saying that? Because there's a hadith, there's numerous hadiths, but they say according to the hadith from the Ahlul Bayt, the best aid to faith is wealth. Ya Allah, what are you saying? Ya Ahlul Bayt, what are you saying? I thought namaz, I thought roza, I thought hajj, I thought zakat, I thought this. No, wealth. Why? The majalis, the Imam Bargas, the Husainiyas, these things, they don't run without it. That's one level. At the next level, you can't make people's lives better without it. It's a necessity of our world, number one. But at the same time, the question is, why am I doing it? And that's where you get clarity. I've met in our own community globally, people who are, in modern terms, billionaires. And you find them all across the board. You find some who are just interested in themselves, they have no interest in anyone else. And you seriously, truly find some people who are really working for a cause, to try to make the world a better place. We sometimes brush people in black and white. Now when we come to the Quran al-Majid wal Furqan al-Hamid, especially the verses that we'll discuss now, you'll realize that Allah gives us a constitution from the very beginning. And if we understand or try to understand that constitution, we get some guidance that may help us understand that, look, maybe I can work and I can make good money and I can help and support my family and I can help others as well. Or maybe I can make a system that is built on the system of the Ahlul Bayt to develop my economy and my community, to make them go much further. We come to the verse of the Quran, Surah Yaseen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Yaseen, wal Qur'anil Hakim, innaka lamin al-mursaleen, ala siratim mustaqim. This is where I want to continue. We mentioned that Yaseen has a few meanings. Either it's huruf al-muqatti'at, it is the disjointed letters of the Quran, or huruf al-muqatti'at, if it's not that, according to Imam Sadiq, it's the name of Rasulullah. Now, there is one interpretation that says Yaseen, the seen is coming from Syriac, not Arabic. As you know, there is a family of languages, Hebrew, Arabic, Syriac, all of these are a family. So that's what it was referring to. Nonetheless, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is attributed to have said Yaseen refers to the Holy Prophet. And it's said that he has a few names, in particular, that have been mentioned in the Quran. For example, Muhammad. For example, Ahmad. For example, Taha. For example, Yaseen. For example, Muzammil. For example, Muddassir. For example, Abdullah. 7 names in the Quran of the Holy Prophet, according to the Ahlul Bayt. These are names of the Holy Prophet. Now, I spent time to try to explain to you the position of Rasulullah last night, so that we understand that the Quran cannot be fully understood without understanding Rasulullah. Because you don't have a context without Rasulullah. And Rasulullah, his number one student was Amir al-Mu'mineen. That's why we take from the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, number one. Now, there is a tradition. During the time of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, there Ma'mun and you would have these debates, and he would call all these people from different places. Now, you know, it is an interesting time. You have to know the dynamics. At one side, Banu Abbas, the Abbasids, They were very, very good politicians, very astute politicians. Now, this is where I'm getting at. If you understand the Quran, you understand society. Because the games of politics, the games of economics, the games of different sociology and others, they haven't changed. Because فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. The fitrah of insan does not change. So the same politics that happened at that time happens at this time. So on one level, the Abbasids, Ma'mun, Harun, X, Y, and Z, they were big patrons of the arts and sciences. In fact, the era of the Islamic age that the West calls the Islamic age of society, where Islam developed so much, it happened on the watch of the Abbasids predominantly. Baghdad, from 800 to 1100 AD, was the center of knowledge. In fact, for our youth, there were three brothers by the name of the Banu Musa brothers. If you study them in the West, Banu Musa brothers, they were very close to the Abbasids, Harun and Ma'mun in particular. They are credited with creating the first hardware-software interface in history that we know of. In fact, they built the first computer, what we would call a computer. They built a computer. It was a device that played the flute. And it had a cartridge, what we would call a cylinder in the middle. You replace the cylinder, and you put another cylinder, and it plays a different tune. And this was the first hardware-software interface that's on record. It was the Banu Musa brothers in Baghdad. Now, they were heavily paid by Ma'mun and Harun and the Abbasids. So on one side, much scientific progress took place during the era of these oppressors. Because on the other side, they were doing dhulm on Ali Muhammad. Now one thing that you realize is, one of the side effects, and I'm not doubting science whatsoever, I'm a scientist in a regard myself. But what I'm saying is there's a cost and there's a side effect of that in our world. So what happened? They were patronizing much of the sciences so that people went away from the Ahlul Bayt. And what were they doing with Imam Kazim? They were putting Imam Kazim in prisons. You know, in our world, I'll flash back to our world very quickly. Do you know, according to researchers, many of us, alhamdulillah, have been vaccinated or on the vaccination track already. If you're not, inshallah, please do. But do you know there's some places in the world who they don't have hope of their populations getting vaccinated? At least not in the next 2 years. Why do we have this luxury and others don't? Do you not think there's a cost of this? In economics, there's an old principle. There's no such thing as a free lunch. If I benefit, at some level, someone's also suffering because of what I've done or my system has done. So we need to be mindful of these things. So Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, during his time, he gets a gathering of people and they have a discussion. They say, what is the meaning of Yaseen? All the Mufassirin there, who are not Shias by the way, they were Ahl Sunnah, all of them came forward and said that according to Yaseen is Rasulullah, the Holy Prophet. Now this is very important because this gives us context of what the verse in the chapter is talking about. Now I want to come. Yaseen, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yaseen wal Qur'anil Hakim. Innaka lamin al-mursaleen. Ala siratim mustaqim. This is ayah 3 and 4 that I just recited. And it's very important. I mentioned to you last night that Rasulullah is one of the mursaleen as per the Qur'an. 313 of them were sent. Ala siratim mustaqim. Now those who are attending the exegesis on Surah Al-Hamd will really enjoy this. Because Surah Yaseen and Surah Hamd are coming together. If Surah Yaseen is the heart of the Quran that we are discussing, Surah Al-Fatiha is no less. In fact, Surah Al-Fatiha is more. It's known as Al-Kitab or Al-Quran. So if you want the most condensed espresso shot of Surah Yaseen, you get it in Surah Al-Fatiha. But this is what I really wanted to share with you. The Quran complements itself. The verses complement one another. That's why Allama Tabatabai does Tafsir al-Quran bil-Quran. But Allama Tabatabai is not the founder of Tafsir al-Quran bil-Quran, interpreting the Quran from one verse to another by its own verses. This has been the tradition for 1400 years from the Ahlul Bayt. He just built on it. And we appreciate his contribution because it's tremendous. What does this ayah mean? What are these verses referring to? With respect to the messenger, you are from the Mursaleen. Ala siratim mustaqim. And of course you'll remember in Surah Fatiha the same concept. Oh Allah, keep us and guide us on the straight path. The path of those you have been blessed. Not those who have gone astray. So what is this path? According to Ahlul Bayt, there are a few definitions, and they also come from the Quran. These are, for example, the Anbiya, the Nabi, the Anbiya, the prophets, and the Siddiqeen, and the Shuhada, and the Salihin. These are the categories in which you and I want to be. You see, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was he known as before he announced his prophethood? Sadiq and Ameen. Sadiq and Ameen. What does the Quran say? It's saying the prophets, Siddiqeen, Shuhada and Salihin. That means the Quran, these are the people who are on Sirat al-Mustaqim. These categories of people. That means that leads us to a question. The life that is worth living is one of those lives of those people who are on Sirat al-Mustaqim. That means that if I am one of these four categories, then very good. If not, I need to strive to get towards them. If Rasulullah is known as Sadiq and Ameen, I should strive towards that, because those are the people who are on Sirat al-Mustaqim. That means if you take the opposite of it and reverse engineer these things, take the opposite of it. If I'm not someone who's Siddiqeen, am I, God forbid, someone who lies? Or for example, Shuhada, it refers to witnesses. If I'm not someone who's trustworthy in that regard. Or for example, I'm not one of the Salihin, the pure ones, the ones who are acting good. What if I'm the opposite? And I live my life in a way that I'm not honest and truthful and trustworthy. Then by this verse, I'm not on Sirat al-Mustaqim. Then the question that rises is, what am I doing with my life? The world may say that I've made it, but inside I'll feel empty. That's why I mentioned a couple of nights ago, the heart of the Quran is Yaseen, and Yaseen itself has a verse that is at its heart. The heart of Yaseen is what? Salam, qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. Now take that line, Salam, qawlan min Rabbir Rahim, peace, a word from your Lord, and relate to the line of the Quran, Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innal qulub. Only verily in the remembrance of Allah do the hearts find solace. You are looking for solace and peace and tranquility in your heart from externalities. It will never happen. Tranquility comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Quran is trying to save you time. Do you know why books, according to philosophers, why one should read books? Every major affluent person on this planet, I'm talking about mega billionaires, the 8 people who are 100 billion and plus in this world, do you know they spend a tremendous amount of their time reading? Something that many of us don't. Warren Buffett spends at least 5 hours a day reading. Not just the financial accounts, books about different subjects, energy and science and biology and physics and all the nine. What is that? Why? Knowledge compounds, not my words. You know, interest compounds. Buffett says people don't realize that the way money compounds, knowledge compounds the same way. And compounding has been called the 8th wonder of the world. We don't spend time to read. Do you know what philosopher says? Why books? Why do you need to make time to read books? This is the paradox. Paradox are two things that don't make sense. Reading books saves you time. Reading books saves you time. How? I'll give you one very quick example as we draw to a conclusion. Jeff Bezos, I don't think he needs any introduction. Jeff Bezos, the wealthiest man in the world, Amazon, he said he read one book and it changed his life, called Remains of the Day, written by a Japanese author. He said, this book changed my life. He said it was about a driver who spent his entire life, it was a fiction book. And he himself says, I get more from fiction than I get from reality, because every book has a philosophy. He said, the book was about a driver who spent his whole life driving for someone. And at the end of his life, he thought to himself, what have I spent my whole life doing? I wasted my life. So he came up with a philosophy called regret mitigation, Jeff Bezos, or regret minimization. Mitigation means to minimize. Regret minimization. So he says, every decision I make in life is so that at my deathbed, when I'm in my final moments, I have the least amount of regret. You see, this book, the Quran, is exactly that. If we develop a relationship with this book, at the end of our life, our regret will be minimized. Because that individual who lived and breathed the Quran every single day was the one who in his final moments, who we will commemorate in a few nights, when he is struck in his final moments, he cries out, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba. Allahu Akbar. By the Lord of the Kaaba, I've been successful. Who has the audacity to say that? Who has the gall to say that? I've been successful. That is how the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib should be. I say to myself first and foremost. Yes, I've told you this numerous times. Amir al-Mu'mineen was very wealthy towards the end of his life, extremely affluent. But he gave away everything. He had orchards and orchards. He dug well after well. At that time, if you dug a well and you came out with water, it was as if you had struck oil. And by the way, that time is about to come again, because there's a huge water scarcity about to happen. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he dedicated to the people. Amir al-Mu'mineen, at that point, he dedicated everything to the people. Well, there's a moment in time where Amir al-Mu'mineen, he is going, this is after, we say 25 years after Rasulullah, Amir al-Mu'mineen was just sitting at home. It's not true. He was writing a tafsir of the Quran when his right was usurped. He was developing land and property. He goes out in the middle of the desert. He begins to dig in the ground to look for water. One day he does it. Fateh Khaybar, one of the strongest men, working in the fields to try just outside of Medina. He's striking and striking the ground to get water. The first day, nothing. Second day, nothing. Third day, he comes. The people are murmuring now. Ali is going after the dunya. Ali is going after this, and Ali is going after that. Amir al-Mu'mineen has dug his ditch very low, but he's still not hit water. They said Ali went and he began to strike the ground in such a way we've never seen. He said, this is Abu Turab. He's about to strike. He goes out, and the narration says, then he goes back in after taking a breath, and he strikes the water. And he actually gets water that springs out. People said Ali is a millionaire. They didn't understand Ali. He controls Kawthar in his hand. He could have water at any moment if he wanted. But he's giving us a lesson. He said, bring me a paper and a pen. Water is flowing out. They're saying Ali's rich. He said, bring me a paper and pen. Ink and pen and paper. They brought it. He says, I am giving this property to this people here, all of you, as waqf. I am endowing it to you. It's all yours. For who? Now look at what Ali does and let us understand what we should be doing. Ali, who in his final moments, he says, you save your final breaths for the most important thing in life. What does he say? Allah, Allah fil aitam, Allah, Allah fil masakin. By Allah, don't forget the poor and don't forget the orphans. Ali, he says, give me the pen and paper. He writes, he says, the money and the income that comes from this water well that I have dug, I don't want a dime. It will go for people who are strangers and traveling. I want you to give it to them. Not only that, anyone who is having difficulty getting married, husband and wife, couple, young people want to get married, they can't afford it, use the income from here to get them married. Use this money to look after the poor and the orphans. Use it to look after those who don't have treatment, medical treatment. Ali ibn Abi Talib listed all of these categories and said, I don't want a penny from here. And what did this world do to his son Hussein ibn Ali on the plains of Karbala? Allahu Akbar. Those people on the other side had everything that they wanted. The army of Yazid. Do you know, some people were promised Rai, modern day Tehran, and they said, that's why I'm killing him. I know his position. But subhanallah, he killed Imam Hussein, he bought Jahannam, and he still didn't get Rai. Don't sell your soul to the devil. I tell myself first and foremost. I would take more time. It's a Friday, but I have to do a lecture on West Coast time. So you are excused, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this holy gathering, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all those who are in attendance here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow the Quran al-Majid wal Furqan al-Hamid to be a guidance for us, a constitution for us, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all of those who are suffering, for all those people, for example, who may be suffering from COVID, anyone, for example, who is suffering from any other illness. Ya Allah, protect all of the mu'mineen here and allow this to be removed from our world. Ya Allah, bless all the volunteers who are helping before, after, during the program, who've been working so hard and so diligently. Ya Allah, protect all of their families. And Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman and allow us to be amongst his companions when he returns. A final request, if you could please recite the Surah Al-Fatiha. You may have heard of the news. Maulana Sayyid Awal Muhammad Naqvi has passed away from COVID, who was the brother of Maulana Shahanshah Hussain Naqvi, who's one of the leaders of the community in Pakistan. If you can please recite the Surah Al-Fatiha for him and for your marhumin, for all those who do not have someone to recite the Fatiha for them in this night. Surah Al-Mubarak Al-Fatiha ma'as salawat. Allahumma salli wa sallim.
زيارة إن شاء الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي ولي الله، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا إمام الحسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريتك علي بن الحسين محمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وزهورك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات الله.